Yeah. I'm going to hand it over to you, Ellie, for a few words of welcome.
Thanks. Apparently this is not our smoothest technology day for webinars, but we're gonna make it up as we go along. I'm Ellie Mitchell. I am the director of the Maryland Out of School Time Network. We also serve as the backbone for the Maryland Coalition for Community Schools. And actually, as we started out this webinar, we were discussing all the challenges that are happening right now at the state level, at the federal level, around community schools. And so that's one of the roles we play, very importantly, is around advocacy. And so we'll do some shout outs at the end of ways that you can get information on how to get engaged in the work that we're doing around protecting the blueprint. Just want to go over a few little technical things. As Jessica mentioned, we are in webinar mode. We want you to try to use the chat box for introductions and information sharing, but we'd like you to submit your questions for the panelists through the Q&A feature. That way we can track them and make sure that we get all the questions answered. We'd like you to stay on mute unless you're asked to come off mute. I think that's pretty much how it's set up, but just in general. And we will be sharing both the slides and the recording of this. So no worries, no need to screen capture or anything like that. You will get everything that you need in follow-up from the webinar. We already did some chat box check-ins, so you guys can keep those going. I thought maybe since we were talking about principals, you could give a shout out to a principal who made a difference in your life while you're checking in the chat box, but we'll just let that roll on the chat. And here's our panelist slide, as Jessica was introducing everybody already. And I think that I'll hand it back to Jessica to wrap this introductory section up, and we'll move into our presentations.
Thanks for that, Ellie. In this webinar and all of our webinars, we bring research and practice together. And so we are going to kick it off with our researcher. And she's going to talk a little bit about leadership and community schools. And then we'll turn it over to our two principals for discussion. And please post your questions in the Q&A. We will have time to pose them at the end. So with that, Dr. Mager.
Hi, thanks for inviting me today. I'm really excited to be talking about my research. So I've been studying leadership in community schools since 2014. Next slide. As you know, the collaborative leadership and practice is one of the four core pillars of community schools. Next slide. In 2014, I began a study where I followed 3 community schools in Pennsylvania over a period of 5 years to identify the factors that were related to making that initiative sustainable. And so this was a qualitative study. We did some interviews over time and documents, and we did time studies where we intrusively asked them multiple times a day what they were working on. Next slide. And one of the things that we learned that sort of pushed me into going even further down this path of leadership is that the importance of the principal. So this is a quote from one of our coordinators. If you don't have a principal who's on board, nobody is holding them accountable to follow through. It becomes very difficult to keep momentum going if you don't have the buy-in from the principal. So this was a particular coordinator who had a lot of turnover among school leaders. Next slide. So we did a follow-up study where we broadened, I worked with Kathleen Provenzano from Binghamton University on this study, and we really dug into principals themselves and their leadership in full-service community schools. And in this study, we broadened to 5 school districts, and we went across 4 different states. Next slide. And again, we found that principals could really be barriers to the development of a community school. This is a quotation from a community school coordinator who attended the national conference and said, I actually sat in one of the workshops that was called When Your Principal is the Barrier. And there was a big room full of coordinators. Next slide. Which led us to study, like, what does it take to be a good community school principal? So we created a panel of 15 community school experts, and we followed up with interviews and focus groups from principals and coordinators from 18 schools to identify the dispositions and behaviors that are associated with effective community school leadership. Next slide. And we came up with 31 characteristics of effective community school principals. I'm not going to read to you all 31, but I will highlight the top 10. Next slide. So one of the most important things is this is a relational position. We need relationship-focused principals who build trust with other people, collaborate and share leadership, in particular, creating that collaborative relationship with the community school coordinator. Next slide. From an organizational level, there's a lot going on in a community school. Number one is integrating the community school strategy into the core of how the school functions, not treating community schools like an add-on. And then being accountability and results driven, which is connected to being strategic and focused. Can't have a lot of activity that's not connected to anything. Next slide. And then there's a particular culture that needs to be developed in a community school. One of them is operating with the equity lens, promoting collective responsibility for student success, and then nurturing a student-centered school culture. Next slide. And then from a pedagogical standpoint, you want someone who understands and values the whole child approach. Next slide. So one of the things that we did find as a side of this particular study was that most principals reported having received little or no training in how to lead a community school, unlike the people on this webinar, or deeply engage with families and community partners. We are offering a lot more for principals now than we were about 6 years ago when we did this study. Next slide. Which led me to another investigation, which is how are principals being prepared for family and community engagement? Next slide. In this study, we looked at the 3 largest states in each region of the country, and I dug into all of their leadership programs. And I looked at their program and course descriptions and their syllabi to figure out what are they doing in regard to family and community engagement. Next slide. And the results suggested that many aspiring principals are leaving their educational leadership programs not only not equipped to engage with families and communities in the deep kinds of ways we need in community schools, but many of them are also unaware that community schools and other models like it even exist. Next slide. And some of the problems were that in about 46% of the programs, family and community engagement is either not mentioned at all, or it's only mentioned in part of like a school law class, which is more about the legal requirements for special education. Next slide. Some of the classes were deeply out of date and had some readings that were a little problematic with gendered and negative assumptions about parents. These are some of the headings for chapters in books that were required reading. Lice aren't nice, parents can be worse. Mrs. Bumble and her band of busybodies, and what the PTA is not, teachers and men. So you can see they're looking at parents through a problematic lens. Next slide. And then the bigger thing that was across most programs was just really shallow skill development and no application. So a lot of lip service to family and community matters, but no tasks or assessments related to them. Or when there were tasks or assessments, it was read from a textbook and write something about what you read. Next slide. So the best preparation programs, and some of them were actually created by some really prominent researchers in the community school world, did include direct engagement with families and communities, which principals do need to be able to do this work, and then require an analysis of community needs and assets before designing interventions. So those of you familiar with community schools, this is really where we live. And so that is my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer questions at the end when we're ready to have the panel discussion.
Thanks, Linda. This was so great and so on time, like you said. Sorry to doubt, but that was amazing research that we just heard, and we really want to turn it over to our principals to hear their reflections on what the field is like. What is it like to be a community school principal? So, with that, Krista, we'll turn it to you first.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Krista Taylor. I am the principal at Princeton Elementary School, and we are in Somerset County. My school is just under 400 students, and we serve students pre-K 3 through first grade. So we have the youngest learners, and we're the only school in the county that is divided in grade level like that. So we're definitely unique when it comes to that. We also are a Title I school. And so you will hear in my presentation some of the things. We are very fortunate because we do have both pots of funding and can provide really a lot of services to our students and their families. So if you'll go to the next slide. Okay, so in Somerset County, we have an overall mission, and you can see that on the screen. And we have three main priorities. The priorities revolve around accelerating math and reading achievement for all of our students, providing strong social and emotional structures of support for our students and our staff, and also building a strong culture and climate to connect with our students, families, and the community. So I think that third priority really speaks to our commitment to the community school program in Somerset County. Next slide. So you can see here, this is my community school liaison. We talk about relationships, and really that is the key factor in being a successful community school, whether it's the relationship between the principal and leadership and the community school liaison, or the relationships between the school and the community. So you can see my history a little bit. I didn't tell you, I taught pre-K for over 20 years in Somerset County. And some of those years, you'll see Dr. Megan Miller, who is our community liaison. This is the two of us when we were teaching pre-K together. So we were next door neighbors in our building. And now we have come full circle, and she is a community school liaison in my building. And there we are accepting some donations from a local organization, from a local university in our town. So I think that being a pre-K teacher and coming from that background really enabled me to jump into this role and embrace the community school beliefs much more easily, because when you teach young children in early childhood, you're really thinking about the whole child and really that and the family and getting them acclimated to school. And so, that really helped me embrace all the beliefs and to best utilize the community school opportunity to best meet our students and our families. So I even my second year as principal here, I moved Dr. Miller up. She is actually next door to my office. She is the closest staff member to me in proximity in the building, and she is constantly my sounding board, and definitely, in my opinion, is instrumental in the community school program success. So next slide. So what makes community schools neat is that we're looking at how to expand beyond just the four walls of our building, and how to support our students and their families, And we're looking at really and thinking that the school is the hub in the community. We really want the community to take advantage of the opportunities that we offer here at school. But it's also reciprocal. We also, tap into their expertise and the resources that the community has to offer. And I think that Dr. Walker School is in a more populated area. We are very rural, so our opportunities probably are not as plentiful as we would if we were in a city, but we definitely take advantage of all the opportunities that we have within our small community. We're fortunate we have a university, we have local churches. There's lots of things that we have tapped into that you might not necessarily think of off the top of your head when you're thinking about community school. What it looks like is definitely a shared vision and shared goals. You saw on the third priority for our county about supporting the climate and culture, and community schools absolutely helps us to support that vision and goal. Definitely consistent and intentional meetings and check-ins. Our community school liaison is part of our leadership team at school. Our community liaison is involved in all the major decisions that are made, program planning. She is there right along with the assistant principal, with our instructional coaches. So she is right there to give her input and to help provide some ways that community schools can support our efforts. And it was just purposeful sharing and revisiting of our goals. We're always looking at our data. We're surveying families to see how what they need and how we can best support them. So next slide, please. Okay, so just a little look into the day of our life of our community school liaison. And I mentioned we have the youngest learners in our county. We have a lot of students who are picked up and dropped off in a pickup car rider line. So our community school liaison is out there every single day in the morning and the afternoon. She's building those relationships with those families. They see her. They will call on her. They text her. She is critical in the success of our students and their lives. They schedule volunteers. They work with student services. We also have a Judy Center that is within our school. She works closely with the Judy Center partner so that we can provide programming for our families. But as you can see, she's a very, very busy lady, and just a sample of many of the things that she does during the day. So we chose, next slide, please. We chose to highlight two of our initiatives that are supported by community schools within our building, although we do a lot. We have many initiatives. Our two most popular, we have a parent pop-in series, which is offered after school 6 times a year for families. We provide childcare, depending on the event, because some of our topics are to be shared with students. Some of them are more geared towards the adults and the family. So depending on that, we also offer food. We make sure everybody has dinner while they come. But this is based on, we pick the topics based on the survey that parents fill out for our community schools, and we decide on them. We've offered mental health. We've offered how to deal with challenging behaviors and big feelings in young children. We've offered financial literacy instruction. Our most recent one that we had that was new and had been requested by families was resume building. We have a local resume expert that came in and provided her services and helped families to tweak or create the resume for upcoming job searches. We have partnered with SNAP-Ed to provide information on healthy meals on a budget. We had a local library specialist come in and do reading strategies for families. We've done physical wellness for families, and we've done learning through games. And so next slide, please. This next slide is just some of our families. This was a yoga night, and the families are participating with their children. So when they left, they had received yoga mats, they had received instruction during the evening, and then they also had dinner. Next slide. Some of them, like I said, are for families, children, and parents, adults. But then there are other times that it is instruction for and information for the adults in the family, and the children are in daycare. So just, they work, there's a couple different ways that it looks. So next slide, please. Another fun initiative that we do are Wildcat Cub Clubs. Being in a rural area, after school and before care is really, really difficult for our families to find. And this is just to help families out and to give enrichment for our students. Last year, we did a cooking club that was offered by our SNAP Ed Fitness. We had a local boxing club owner come. We had STEM, which was offered by one of our teachers, art that was by a teacher, newspaper, and then Girl Scouts, a local Girl Scout troop came and did sessions. And then this year we're doing board games, we're doing book buddies, art, and play. And it's just, we've had really good response from our families that how much they have appreciated the enrichment opportunities for our children. And if you go to the next slide, there's our game club. This was run by one of our teachers, and she talked about working on taking turns. They got a lot of opportunities with that. And then the next slide is our local boxing club owner who was doing health and wellness at the time on the carpet. And that ends. In conclusion, COP, I am so thankful for the opportunities it has given to our school and our families. And it's just enhanced our lives, our building, and I so appreciate the opportunity. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me.
Thanks, Krista. I really appreciate your presentation. And just one thing that struck me before I turn it over to Dr. Walker, because I'm really eager to hear from you, is how all that family and community engagement work was shared by a principal, not by a community school coordinator or facilitator, right? By a principal. So just highlighting that. And Dr. Walker, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lila Walker, Dr. Walker, and I'm from Beacon Heights Elementary School in Prince George's County, Maryland. Our school is in Riverdale, and I've been here 19 years, and of which 8 years as the principal. Prior to that, I was the assistant principal here. And our school is a pre-K to 5 school. I just lost my 6th graders, and we are down to about 352 students at the present time. Title I, along with being a community school, and we have approximately about 80% Hispanic Latino families that we serve. The rest of my families are African descent, Haitian, Afghan, and then others. We have about 12 languages that are spoken in the building. So it's a myriad of languages and customs that are here, which make for a very enriching place to be. And when we looked at a lot of the things that Krista mentioned, I was nodding because a lot of the things that they're doing in Somerset County, we do right here in little old Riverdale. We are a more city type of a school setting, but quite honestly, I'm a walking school. All of my kids walk. We don't have any buses. So I have the advantage of seeing my students every day and their parents every morning because they walk up. That's one advantage. My community school specialist, Samantha Villegas, is out there most mornings, if she's not outside, she's inside in our parent center, greeting and talking with our parents. We've had the likely advantage of having our parents have that comfortability to be able to come in and talk to us when they would like to. Relationship building is very important to this role. And having that sense of being able to talk to our parents when they want to talk to us. If they need something, they know that they can come to me or to Miss Villegas or Miss Sam, as they call her. She works very closely with our PEA, our parent engagement assistant. She also works very closely with our guidance counselor, our professional school counselor. And we have been very blessed to have 3 of our churches in the area who work quite closely with us. We just wrapped up a very nicely well done coat drive. We were very blessed this year to have been chosen for a shoe drive through Geico and Shoes That Fit. So all of our students were able to receive brand new shoes. So that was a blessing. Through community schools, we've been very fortunate to have after school programs where our kids are able to participate in a myriad of activities, from academic programs coupled with the programs that we already have that are funded through Title I and through grants that we've been fortunate enough to garner, as well as we just started our soccer, after school soccer program, and we just started our cheer program. So having a nice balance for the kids, academics and the athletics gives them a nice opportunity. And that's Monday through Friday. So it gives them that opportunity. They also have the chance to have a nice snack with that, which is really almost a full meal with that. And that is Monday through Friday. We try to make sure that we are always tying in the 6 pillars for Prince George's County community schools, expanding and making sure that our curriculum is culturally relevant for our students because of the students that we service. We try to make sure that our teachers are included when it comes to making sure that we have the multi-tier system for them for PBIS. We make sure that we have our family and community partnerships are always put into place. Normally, we have monthly parent meetings, and that allows our parents to come into the parent center and express whatever it is that they need assistance with. Ms. Villegas and Ms. Ortiz Medina work together along with our mental health therapists on a regular basis to ensure that not only are our students comfortable and have a good feeling about themselves, mind, body, and spirit, also that the parents are feeling comfortable. It's an open space to where they are able to come in and visit, talk with them either on a one-on-one basis, if they need to make an appointment. And then if we do need to have, when we have monthly meetings for specific reasons, they do a survey and they take the first top 3 and make those decisions as far as how they're going to be meeting with those, with the parents on different topics. So each month they have a separate topic that they're going to be working on. They work very closely with our ELD team and very closely with our SPED team to ensure that all of our parents are seen and heard.
Thank you so much, Dr. Walker. it was really great to hear all the great things that are going on in your school. Ellie, can you turn on my video? It would be great to just see everyone and maybe turn on all of our videos. I wanted to just encourage people to post questions in the chat. I saw one already. Love to see some more, or in the Q&A rather, not the chat. I really want to just pose a question right away, though, for everybody to weigh in on. As I was listening to Dr. Mager, to your research and thinking about all the ways in which school leaders are not prepared to run community schools, I'm wondering, Dr. Walker, like you first, like what made you prepared to embrace the strategy of the community school? What got you there?
For me, quite honestly, I'm a people person, and it was quite easy for me to just be able to talk to my parents. I've always been, um, it's always been easy for me to talk to parents and find out what their needs are. Um, and when our school became a community school, I found that a lot of those things I was already doing. I was already talking to our parents. I had already built relationships with my parents. Um, I was already making the attempt and doing um, what needed to be done to make sure that um, my students felt seen and heard in the building. Um, because I wanted to make sure that if I had a child in school, that they were seen and heard. My perception is I treat my kids here just like I treat my children at home. And if I do the same by these kids here that I do by my kids at home, everything should roll nicely. And that's the expectation of my teachers here. My CSC and I, we talk every day, all the time. If this door wasn't closed, she would probably be in here. Um, and that's how we converse. There is no real set time that we have a meeting. We literally talk every day, even on the weekends. As we get closer towards budget time, budget season, we really talk all the time. We're already in next year planning because that's where our heads are. We're in sync. And I think that's where you have to be with the person that you're working with in order to make sure that your building runs smoothly. I don't have an AP, so she's my person, her, my guidance counselor, my team leads in my building. They're collectively my APs. So all of them work together. We work together as a collective whole in the building. So I listen to them and they help me to make sure that I don't mess up. So yeah, but we work together to make sure that this runs truly as a community school.
Thank you for that. Dr. Mager, I saw you nodding the whole time that Dr. Walker was talking. Were there things that you heard in what she said that resonated with the research?
Oh yeah, a relationship focused for sure. I mean, she's right there. I was looking in the chat and it looked like somebody had a question about, what do you do with reluctant principals, right? Because you have a lot of principals who are fantastic at community schools who didn't get any special training because it just dovetails with their approach to leadership. But one of the things we need to be able to do if we're going to scale this, especially scale it across the district, is how do you take that person who maybe wasn't naturally inclined to this and help them see that it's a good way to go. And I think that is sort of the nut that we're trying to crack these days. And some of it is just you have to understand what their approach to leadership is and go from there. So some people are really drawn to the fact that the community school approach is a systems approach, that it's not necessarily a lot of new things, but it's a way of organizing a lot of things that you're doing that may seem disconnected from one another. Some of them, it's the research base, right? To be able, we've got a ton of evidence now that shows that this approach works if you follow the pillars, right? You can't pick and choose. And so I think for some people, you can go in through the evidence base, and then some people just need stories, right? We know that people are drawn to narrative, and they need to see the story of successful community schools like the two that our principals here are talking about.
Absolutely. And there's so many questions here that I want to pose to you all. But it also makes me think about data too. And some principles are driven by that. And we know that data moves when the community school strategy is in place. Moves your attendance moves in positive directions. Your school climate moves in positive directions. And even your academic data will move in positive directions. Maybe not like that second, but it takes a little bit more time with that one. But that also moves in positive directions. And I think also staff turnover, all these things kind of create the conditions for a great community school and great leaders to be a part of that. Krista, there's a question specifically for you that I think would be interesting to hear, which is about Michael Barnes asks, how important would you say that the relationship you have with your community school coordinator is in moving the work forward?
It is the number one factor in the success of our community school program. I cannot speak and enough about that. And the relationship between Dr. Miller and myself is very strong. It's been rooted in many, many years of being together, but that does not mean that a community school liaison and a principal are not going to be successful. It just takes time to build that relationship and that effort. And I think that no matter what your leadership style is, no principal is going to be successful if they do not work hard to establish relationships. And that relationship building piece is really the most important piece. So I could not do it without Dr. Miller.
That's great. And Dr. Walker, you talked about that too, how you talk every day with your community school coordinator and how important that is. With your busy schedules, there's a question, how do you hold space for intentional meetings with your CSC? How do you handle that? And either one of you, please.
So
jump in.
we at Princess Anne, we have weekly school leadership team meetings. So there is a dedicated time every Monday morning for that. However, our offices are next door and I'm constantly yelling, "Hey, Dr. Miller." And she'll just come over and we'll bounce ideas. She'll answer whatever question I happen to have. I think like Dr. Walker said, we are texting or calling at night or on the weekend. It's just it's communication that just doesn't stop.
Exactly. I'm in an old building, so the offices are configured differently, small. So I'll run out of my office and I'll stand there, Sam, or either if my phone is available, it's a quick text, and she'll run around. But we talk all the time, literally, and it's a lot easier. It's so much easier, you have to have that relationship in order to make this work. I'm glad that I have the relationship that I have with the people in my building, period, because it's so much easier to be able to get the work done. You have to have that relationship in order to get things done and finished. Or you won't get anything done. You know, this is a hard job in itself. Any principal will tell you that. So you have to have people around you who are willing to help put in the work with you. So when you're fortunate and blessed enough to have these people around you, you are fortunate and blessed. And I do consider myself um, a blessed little girl from Chicago. So very much so.
It's great. Um, this is a great question, I think, also for any of you to answer. Ray Watkins asks, and says she has a wonderful principal who stretched very thin, and she would like to know how to support her principal. What could a community school coordinator do to better support the principal and maybe thereby building the relationship? Or
Just
there,
ask.
sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
just, well, just ask, how how can I help you? What can I do to help to shoulder this for you? What is it that I can take off your plate?
Mm.
And usually that's what Sam says sometimes. What can I do on Mondays? What can I do to take off your plate this week? That's usually her first sentence on Monday sometimes. What can I take off your plate today? And a lot of times that's huge, you know, for me. Um, and it could be the littlest thing,
Mm.
you know. I think she sent me a text on one Saturday. I have a brilliant idea. Hold on to your socks. And then she proceeded to send me this massive text as to what she was going to do. Perfection, so, and as principals, we have to learn how to relinquish that title of I'm the leader. Let somebody help you. If they want to, let them.
And I want to piggyback on that because one of the things that we found were the best community school principals were elevating their community school coordinators as leaders. And so positioning them so that they had legitimacy in the school community. And this is even more important when your community school coordinators are not district employees and they're employees of a partner. And so that, I mean, the principal has to build some of that in. But the principal can't just delegate everything to the coordinator because the principals, where the principal puts their time is a valuable signal to the school community of what's important. And so if the principal isn't going to any partner meetings or isn't going to any community school things, that sends the message to the teachers, to the parents, to the community members that this is not a priority for them. So it's really some strategic decision makings on the part of the principal as to what they absolutely need to be a part of and which things they can and should delegate to the coordinator.
Dr. Mager, there was a question about high schools in the Q&A. We have two elementary school principals here, and a lot of community schools are elementary schools. Has there been any work you've done around high school principals, and does that make a difference?
Yes, high schools tend to approach community schools in a little bit different way. We did talk to some high school principals, some in New York City, and we found that they were a lot more focused on sort of career exploration and a little bit less into the social services and parent engagement and a little bit more about connecting the students themselves to partners in the community, job shadowing, internships, things like that.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. There's a great question about challenges. So for all of you, but for our principals especially, what have the challenges been in running a community school, and how have you addressed them? Krista, why don't we start with you?
So, obviously we can't be everything to everybody and provide every single thing that our parents have indicated. So, one of the challenges is identifying like programs and initiatives that are best going to meet the needs of our families. And what are we going to, uh, we want to use our money in the most judicious way, so ensuring that we are getting the most for what we're spending and we're able to best meet the needs of our families, because when our families are doing well and they are supported, then our students do well, which makes our school do well. So we just want to be able to best support, and trying to make those decisions, I think, is a really big challenge. Obviously, time is a challenge. Um, and trying to figure out a way to, again, best meet the needs of our families, our working families who need things at night versus our families who also need things during the day. And again, I had mentioned when I was speaking earlier the rural nature of our school. We don't have as many options and resources as one might have in a more populated area. So trying to be strategic and creative when identifying the resources within our community, like the expert that we had for resume building was one that we just happened to find because she had retired from a local university and was substituting, and we realized a particular skill set that she had, so we were able to capitalize on that. So I think that that's another challenge, is just trying to find um, the resources that are best going to meet our family's needs.
How about you, Dr. Walker? Challenges and how you've addressed them?
I think the biggest challenge when it comes to community schools, for our area, it hasn't necessarily been partnerships per se. And I think because we've been very fortunate, I'll say that first. Been very fortunate with garnering partnerships. Um, we have, I'm surrounded by churches, number one. So we've been blessed to have 3 of these churches to become partners over the years. Um, we have a Chick-fil-A that's a partner of ours. I'm literally within a 5-mile radius of University of Maryland, 5 or 10, maybe 10 miles. I don't think it's 10 miles. 5 miles from University of Maryland, College Park. Um, we built a long-standing relationship with them. So they come, the students come here, and we've had a long-standing relationship with them. And other entities, you know, I'm a talker, so I'll make you come to my building some kind of way. Um, a lot of times my teachers who have been here for many years, I think the majority of my teachers on the low end have been here 10 years. Most of them have been here a lot longer. And so they'll encourage people to come and visit. Um, Stay a while. Some of our subs are retired teachers, so that's been fruitful for us. But our biggest challenge would be getting things finalized because, of the red tape that's required, getting things finished, because you got to go through all the paperwork, you know, but that's just paperwork, that you have to get through with the offices and whatnot. But when it comes to what you receive for your families, like we do monthly um, uh, food baskets for our families. Um, Once we get it started, it's off and running. You know, the parents know they're part of it. Um, and we've done surveys to find out what they want. Um, and it's a give and take. The parents understand what they want, so they help us by doing surveys. It helps us to be able to get to know what we need to do for them. Same thing for the children. We talk to the kids to find out what it is that they want, find out what the parents want. We find out what the teachers want, because it's a collective whole. And yeah, we are in a more populated, more populous area for being able to acquire things. But uh, I think our biggest nemesis is paperwork and red tape when it comes down to it, you know. Yeah.
Achievable.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, there's one last question I want to pose. It's a really interesting one. Um, I think it comes from a principal, Andrea McCall, who asks about her community school coordinator, right? She's saying she has a challenge with her coordinator taking on leadership. So everything is kind of hard and not really working, and it's left a bad taste for her around the community school strategy. What would you recommend to a principal in her shoes about how to engage her coordinator a bit more so that she's taking on more leadership? And anybody can jump in for this one. I mean, y'all are lucky. You have such great staff and coordinators just stepping up. But what would you do, Dr. Walker?
She's reluctant to taking on more leadership.
Sounds that way.
Hmm. Did she not know what the job entailed? She when she was interviewing, or when she took the job? Because it's not a little sit behind your desk type of job. And it can be, as some as Heidi mentioned, that is she overwhelmed? She could be overwhelmed because for the CSCs here in Prince George's County, it's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of reporting. It's not a just it's not an easy peasy job. It really isn't. And with all of what we do here, um, from the food baskets, the monthly drives that we do, the parent meetings, um, field trips. I have field trips planned in the summertime so that we know where all of our kids are going to go, from the babies up to the bigs, at the beginning of the year. Then it's just the planning that Sam has to do, and the packets. Those packets are not the easiest thing to complete. So it's a lot, you know. Does she have a buddy that she could pair up with at another school that is more successful, that has a successful relationship with the principal CSC, where she might can go over and see what that looks like. Um, but if not, she might just have to hop the fence and just say, this isn't for you." Because quite honestly, you can't have a person who's not ready to put in the work, because then that brings your whole program down. Just like by not having a good principal that's ready to put in the work of being a community school principal, you can't have a CSC that's not going to help you in all of that, because it's very hard to do by yourself. That's not a by yourself. Being a community school is not a by yourself job.
That's right.
Well, and
I
there,
would jump in to say, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, I would just jump in and to say that Fortunately, do not have to worry about this, and I have not had to deal with this because Dr. Miller has been absolutely amazing, and the community school liaison that I worked with in another building was also amazing. I feel like the leadership in Somerset County, we have Dr. Dot Bell Jackson that isn't oversees the community schools program, and she is fabulous in, I think, orienting our staff to the expectations, but just as an individual school, I would say just identifying the initiatives and then the steps that are going to be necessary to make each initiative successful, and just identifying the staff who are responsible for doing each of those steps, so that I'm just thinking maybe she doesn't have a clear idea of what is expected of her. So if her name is next to some action steps, that hopefully they would get done.
Mhm. That sounds like really good advice. And I'm just interrupting here because it's the top of the hour again. And I just want to thank our panelists for such an amazing presentation and engaging conversation. The chat, the Q&A, it's all blowing up, which is a really good indicator that folks are engaged in this conversation. This will not be the last one that we have on this topic. So please continue to follow us. We've posted, and thanks for that slide, Ellie. You can follow the Maryland Center for Community Schools and get our updates. You can follow Maryland Out of School Time Network also, and the Maryland MD4CS to get updates and newsletters and all of that stuff for more information as we carry on through this school year with more info for everybody. But I just want to thank everyone for attending today. Spending your lunch hour with us and when you're so busy is not easy. So thanks to our participants and thanks to our panelists. What a great conversation. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks.